Young hero of the civil rights movement. He didn't just stop there, though. He was Jewish. After the Holocaust, yeah, there was a lot of the people who were considered Untermenschen who really decided to help others. They really decided they were gonna try to see other people more openly, more open-mindedly, and we had a lot of people all over the world that hated Jews, that opened their arms to them. I said, hey, we're now looking at the human and civil rights violations and realizing, yeah, this is not what we want for our kids. Mel Brooks, my favorite line of any movie ever made, bar none. All right, my favorite line is, well, when it come out, it was probably quite a kick to the pants to anybody, anybody who heard it. And I'm sure you guys remember it. It's the line that graces the face of this video. It's when the sheriff comes out and they got them two KKK members, right? And they're standing there and they got the things on the back of their robes. It's a smiley face and says, have a nice day. And you know, at the time, this is a real touchy subject, because I remember even in the 90s, this is a real touchy subject with, oh my God, the black people are going to steal all our white women. Like, oh man. See, did I just say that in my Weird Al voice? Yeah, I totally did. There's a lot of comedians that are out there. They're trying to fight for equality and trying to fight for equal rights. There's a lot of people in Hollywood that are kind of sort of doing that. But Mel Brooks, man, that guy could sing. And I don't mean hold a tune as far as vocally. I don't know if he could or not. But when it came to making a political point and a political message and making the right people laugh and showing us who the assholes are, the guys who immediately got a straight face and looked angry in the theaters, when you got a black sheriff, right? And he says to these two guys in white robes, they're obviously KKK. The sheriff is obviously a black man. He knows that he's a black man. And how do they goat their opponent so they can try to sneak their way in? That's right, you know it. Hey, where the white women at? That's the best line ever written. And it wouldn't be a good line in any other movie, for any other situation. Not nearly as much, or having as much of an impact as that one little saying in that one movie, especially with the whole point of the movie. Now, there's been a few movies since that have been made kind of along the same lines. You know, that's kind of the way it goes, isn't it? Hollywood and all that. You got two major production companies that are always trying to make similar stuff coming out around the same time. We got a Pixar movie that's similar to a Disney movie that comes out around the same time, and then Disney buys Pixar. But hey, it happens, right? There's a lot of people that ask me why I don't go back to doing the things that I used to do. Well, I don't have a platform. I don't have a place. I don't have a medium. I try here on YouTube. That's the best I am capable of doing, other than trying to send stuff to people in YouTube or send it to them in Facebook. send to them in an email if I'm able to, and that's dependent upon email issues, and this is all roadblocks that I need help with that I just simply don't have anybody that'll. I'm tired of asking people. I'm tired of asking people just to come forward and tell the truth. Yeah, you told me that you didn't have time. Everybody told me they didn't have time, and I get that you feel bad about that, and I also get that you don't want that to reflect upon you as a person, so you figure, hey, I'll just hide it. We'll try to help Sean another way, as long as I don't have to admit to what I did wrong. And the thing is, these people have their own lives. Did they really do anything that wrong? They didn't know that it was that much of an emergency. But since I don't generally have emergencies, especially like that, maybe they should have gotten it. I mean, in the last 6 years, everywhere that I move, I have to deal with the abuse, and even recording it, getting my friends to look at it or understand why it's important, it's unbelievable. Now, I used to be funny, and people would tell me, Sean, you're the most real person I know. You're the most honest person I know. Sean, you're the funniest person I know. And that's because I was funny. I mean, in person, I'm witty as shit. But here on YouTube, no, I need you guys to take this shit seriously. If I gotta curse, god damn it, I will. If I gotta scream and shout, well, then that's what I'll do. I'm scared. But a man is not allowed to be scared in the United States. It's some unwritten rule, right? It's kind of like you never call the cops if you're homeless. And people in houses that take advantage of that too. Kind of like a lot of folks want to take advantage of the fact that they can get away with doing horrible stuff to black people. Well, nowadays it's not as popular as it used to be, because you can't get away with it like you used to, but you can still get away with doing it to the homeless. And a lot of y'all, you see somebody at the bottom and you go, I'm a better person than that. I'm doing better than that person. You look down on them like they haven't made an effort ever in their life. If you're not able to see the issues that they have, the roadblocks that they have to face, but you want to pass judgment on them. Some of y'all have friends who are homeless that you barely know. They're good to you. They talk to you every day. They treat you well because, they know what it's like to be victimized. But then when there's a homeless person who's a jackass, and everybody in America has met one of these folks. He's out on the street, he's holding a sign, but he's screaming at you guys. He's drunk, he's belligerent. He might be messed up on something else you don't know, but he's just an angry feller every time you see him. He comes into your establishment, he steals your shit and walks out. And then he wants to come back into your establishment the next day. Why the hell would you do that? Well, maybe you did it to get caught. Maybe you don't want to spend the winter out here freezing. There's a guy here at the Denny's decided that was okay. When it comes to civil rights leaders, do you know what made them civil rights leaders to me? And you guys may differ on this. The reason I like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., despite the fact that he was ineffective, he was combat ineffective and otherwise. He was entirely deficient, but he had a lot of people behind him and a lot of people listened to him, and that's because with all of the folks at that point in time who went, you know what? Just because we're black don't mean that we're not human beings, and we need to arm ourselves and protect ourselves from these predators. We don't know which white people are our friends and which white people will lynch us and drop us off in a swamp in Louisiana if we speak up. We know that most white people, and this is, a lot of history that we learn about. I didn't grow up in it. Thank goodness I didn't grow up in it. Thank goodness I didn't grow up being taught just that hatred. Like for me, I grew up with the other kind of hatred. I grew up in the system where most of the people I was locked up with were definitely not white. And I was white. And I was easy to victimize. I was easy to take it out on. It was also when people were starting to get woke, the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s. And at that point in time, that's when it became really unpopular to use the N-word. You don't do that. Last time I actually used the N-word, and yes, I used the N-word way back in the day. I was like 4 years old, I suppose. And here's the reason I remember it. I was sitting in the back seat, and it was a word that I had heard, and I asked what it meant. I didn't get an explanation of what it meant. I got fucking smacked as a 4-year-old. Like across the face, like more than once. You are going to remember that. Like, holy shit, Mom just smacked me in the face. I didn't know what the word meant, but I knew not to use it. And when I learned what it meant, I was like, well, it makes sense not to fucking use it. Now, it probably would have been a better idea. It probably wouldn't have sunk in as well. I will admit that. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been as much of an immediate, oh my God, I better not ever. Holy shit. I was afraid that word was like, if you say it, you get hit. That's what it means, is hit me, basically. Oh, scary. No, I don't use that word. But I also remember that with a lot of the staff members being woke, if I was beaten up for the color of my skin, I wasn't allowed to defend myself. All these kids had to say is, oh, well, he called me the N-word. Hey, why are you four beating up on him? That white kid is down there on the ground covering himself up, and y'all are fucking dropping kicks and dropping knees on him. What'd he do? Oh, he called us the N-word. We couldn't handle it. Like, no. It was because I was white. And no, not every single time. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into it. I was also small. In most of the places that I was smaller than everybody else there, or almost everybody else there. And I remember Mel Brooks, seeing the Mel Brooks movies. I have the last name of Schwartz, right? So Spaceballs comes out. And of course, for me, all growing up, and even today, people making Spaceballs references, yeah. I've heard them, I've seen the movie. And there's a lot of references in there, because he's not just fighting for Jews, right? He's not just fighting against anti-Semitism. He's also fighting against the hatred and the racism towards black folks. He's trying to show you who the bigots are in your community. And he did a great job of that. That one line in that movie, how big of a headline did it make in the papers? I've never checked, but I know what an impact it made on me. I saw that and I started chuckling. I started thinking of all the people that I knew. All the people that I knew who were afraid that black people were going to steal all the white women. I remember all the wives' tales I heard. All these people's excuses. Oh my God, black people have bigger penises than we do. All of our women are going to leave us. That was the late 80s. That's when adults start talking a little bit more liberally, or maybe as a child you just start to understand what the hell they're talking about at that age. Of course, I was exposed to sex and sexual abuse at a very young age, so I might have caught on to that far sooner than most kids did. I don't know, I'm not most kids. I wasn't then, and I'm certainly not a kid now. Mel Brooks pissed people off. You goddamn right he did. But just like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he fought for our rights, for equal rights. Somebody was telling me something like equity rights or something like that. They're trying to change the word, use a different word because it doesn't quite mean the same thing. No, you're going to change the word to mean whatever you want it to fit to mean for some odd goddamn reason. We now have to sit down and literally rewrite the definitions of half the words in the English language because people have decided that they're going to argue to the point that we just go, all right, fine, fuck it, we give up, you take it. You can have the whole fucking word. But then we've got this word that's got a different use in common usage than what it says in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And that gets confusing. Especially when you're kind of giving up those words in different places regionally, and then people get confused. You get somebody from Alabama who goes to Tennessee, a little bit different lingo, they can probably make it by just fine. It's a little bit different accent, but they can kind of make it by. But you get somebody from Oregon and you send them down to the bayou, there's going to be communication issues. There's going to be words that are used in different usage. A word might mean something completely different there. And when you've got a communication issue like that, and somebody's rolling it around in their head that you mean something different than you do, and you need their help, right? And then they get back to you and they're like, all right, well, here's 10,000 ideas I came up with to try to help you out. And you're like, holy shit, where did they get that idea from? Where did they get the idea that that's what I was looking for? Because that ain't it. And then, of course, you find out about the common usage, or you learn about stuff that is offensive as all hell, especially to the KKK. And that's stuff that you can go to when it's time to do battle. And it is battle. When you're battling with somebody who's a religious zealot, but winning is more important than actually following the teachings of the religion they're pretending to be some champion of. Like, yeah, you're a champion for the Christian cause by helping out predators to get away with crimes that they've committed against at-risk adults. Yes, you are totally an outstanding spokesperson. Truly a saint to behold, aren't you? You want to use the law as an excuse to ignore your religion when it benefits you. And then you want to use your religion to ignore the law when it benefits you. And herein lies our problem. We've now got laws that require the clergy to do something about this. Requires the clergy to be the honest people that they're supposed to be as men of God. But are they upholding God's word? Are they warping and manipulating you by rewording the Bible? This is one of the biggest issues that I have found with religious peoples, is abusing their religion as an excuse to harm others. They're not just abusing the religion, they're literally rewriting it in their own heads, rearranging the words, taking it completely out of the context in which it is written as excuses for harming others. And when they commit the same behaviors as those that they complain about, they don't feel that they should be treated the same way. They'll find a different part to rummage through. Most of the Bible, that is, the majority of the Bible, is rebellion. It is open rebellion. It is God telling Israelites, telling Jacob, telling everybody, rebel. You're being oppressed, rebel. Now, although it was the guns in the hands of who? In the hands of the Black Panther Party. That's right. This is another racist hate group, but they were freedom fighters. They didn't hate most Americans for being outrageously outright racists. They hated the fact that most Americans will literally look the other way, especially back then. If that happens to a black person, they will, even if they saw it, they're like, all right, if I turn my head fast enough, I can pretend I didn't see that if anybody asks. I heard something, I don't know what it was. Right? And then we got comedians that want to make light of a lot of different situations. They're, well, quite frankly, not okay to make jokes about. Jokes about rape and child molesting are not funny. And those are so commonplace. We got that on HBO specials. Big name comedians making jokes. Nasty, nasty jokes. Mel Brooks made a statement. George Carlin made a statement. He's another one of them unsung heroes. If we're going to base a book on somebody's teachings, we should base it on George Carlin's fucking sarcasm. Some of those ideas that he had are really good fucking ideas. They're also sarcastic. What Mel Brooks did for us is to try to bring it to light in a way where we could identify where we stood on the issue. And where we could see anybody else in the room how they stood on the issue. Do you think black people are human beings? Look around the room. There are people like me who have really fought hard because I decided which side of the line I was on. Yeah, it's a black guy and a white guy, right? No, that's just two people. That's just two people. There's also a lot of people that, you say I'm not allowed to have an opinion on black issues. Police brutality is not a black issue. That's all of our issue. That's our issue. The homeless get beaten up by the police a lot more than you do. And you're a lot more likely to be allowed to put to turn in a police report about that brutality. You're also a lot less likely to get murdered by a police officer than a homeless person. Every year, homeless people have about a 1 in 1,000. Not 1 in 100,000, but a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by a police officer every year. 1 in 1,000. The conservative numbers for a black person who is killed by police, you have about a 1 in 230,000. Actually, a little over 1 in 230,000. That's on really, really super conservative numbers. See, because It could be 1 in 400,000, depending on whether or not we allow certain statistics that were collected to be allowed into those statistics. A lot of people want to argue the statistics that come from homeless people, because a lot of people want to argue that because they're homeless people, they're probably guilty if they weren't targeted because they were black. That's how a lot of those statistics stay out. But if we're being really conservative and trying to give as much benefit of the doubt to black people, we're talking about 1 in 230,000. For us, it's 1 in 1,000. That includes if that person is a black person. The majority of black people killed by the police every year were homeless black people. The majority of those locked up and incarcerated in the jails and the prisons and in halfway houses were homeless when they were arrested. It's too bad Mel Brooks can't write a movie to bring this to light about the homeless, about the disabled. There's a lot of people mad at me because I exposed stuff that I shouldn't have had to do it the way I did. For these folks that I tried to get a hold of, that I tried to get help from, between them coming forward to admit that I went to them for help and me having to post it on the internet, I'd have rather not had to post it on the internet. Between posting on the internet about what was going on with Natalie Bollinger and all of her cronies and those douchebags, and having a simple conversation with a friend, like, hey, this is what's going on. All right, I'm being harmed because people are thinking all sorts of crazy shit that didn't happen. Now, you want to have your own crazy delusions, that's fine. I drove 1,700 miles away to get away from a bunch of crazy delusions. But I got people actually hurting me over those delusions. Over you pretending that I might. Pretending that I might. Not that I actually did anything wrong, but the people pretended that I might, and also lied about the situation to insinuate that I had done wrong things. Claiming I was arrested in Virginia. No, I wasn't. No, I fucking wasn't. I was taken to the hospital. Sorry, there's folks out here I recognize. I was making sure I wasn't being rude back. Or they weren't being rude, that's not what I meant. I meant when somebody acknowledges me, I feel rude if I just ignore them. There's also the fact that I get that a lot of people want to take up your time and take up your attention, especially if you're a popular person. That's why I try not to have popular friends. I know that when you feel like you're obligated to be socially engaged and you're obligated to put on that smile all the time, you know, it's hard to make time for people that really have a shitty life when you're trying to pretend that you're happy all the time. Whether you are or not is arbitrary. You got to try to keep that smile on all the time. And this is one of the things that I hear about out of a lot of people. Hey, if I'm not smiling, people don't hear me. Well, that's if you got a straight smile. I know people who smile when they talk and their teeth are incredibly crooked and rotted and corroded and gross. And a lot of people, after that person gets done talking, you can ask them, did you hear what he just said? No, not really. He's trying to figure out what the fuck is wrong with his mouth. Doesn't he have a toothbrush? Well, you know, some people are born with gangly teeth. They're crooked. They don't have the money for a dentist. Especially a lot of these older folks who were around before there was that Obamacare stuff, before there was any sort of decent health care for broke people. We just had to take the pain and the punishment. Our money is being taken out in taxes, same as everybody else's. It's our taxes that are going to the government funding and going to the research the government funding is paying for. But then we don't get the benefits. Why are we paying our taxes for things that we don't get the benefits of? And that's one of the things about Social Security that's supposed to take care of us. But Social Security, we can't be dependent on that. They already dipped into it. That's supposed to be for us. Us who worked, us who paid in. But then again, most of the jobs that I was able to get, because I'm different, all right? I am different. You say I have the same opportunities as you. I don't. It's hard to get a job. It's even harder when you're different. People say, hey man, why don't you go to work at Goodwill? It's a great idea. It really is. If I have a place to stay and I'm not afraid of my stuff getting stolen, and I'm not afraid of being victimized and having to look over my shoulder all the time, maybe I could. But I do have to look over my shoulder all the time because of abuse that I'm told I asked for. Because after asking nicely hundreds of times for help, I literally screamed at the top of my lungs for help. And I cursed. And then, of course, I get treated like I'm an evil person. Doesn't matter that I asked you 100 times before, that I had tried talking to you about what was going on. It doesn't matter that you claimed that you would help me. What matters is, did you follow through? When you didn't follow through, and I was being abused, and I was coming to you for help, saying, please, please help, please listen, please look. Oh, Sean, I don't need to look. I believe you. I believe you. I believe you. I didn't need them to believe me. I needed them to know so that they could speak loud and proud, knowing I'm telling the truth, knowing I've got the evidence. But they didn't look, just like most of you. They just took your word for it. They want to believe that because they ignored it, well, it's not their job. Somebody's job to do it, and that somebody whose job it was to do it probably did it. Probably did it, huh? No, they don't. That's the problem with having to go in alone. For me today, a lot of the day, I wasn't able to go in and sit down someplace because I was hoping that that lady who was going to call me would actually do so. Now, by the time it got late enough in the day, and I was having a real bad panic attack, and I didn't want to come here, and I didn't want to go into Vegas. I really need to conserve my money, but at the same time, I gotta get something done. If you're gonna tell me we'll do something tomorrow, and I also want to stick up for her, and those of you who want to say stop making excuses for your predators. The thing is that my phone is fucking shitty. She sent me a message at like 10:49 this morning, and I didn't get it until like 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the afternoon, something like that. I'm like, what the fuck? So she made an attempt. It didn't let me know. And although that's not my fault, if I say, hey, can we reschedule? She might not be able to reschedule at all. It might be another 6 years. The thought of the evidence being destroyed has scared the hell out of me through all of this. Because that evidence was necessary to show that I told the truth. With a lot of these people who gaslighted me, they almost got away with it because evidence got stolen. They almost got away with it, but then they were stupid, and they decided to engage in conversation with me. And in those conversations, it meant things that were pretty fucking important. Things that they never came forward about. Things that I was called crazy because they never came forward about. If you're going to tell me something, tell the truth. If you don't tell the truth, well, I don't have any problems with showing that you didn't tell the truth. People are dead. When your social bias shows through and only certain victims are victim enough to be victim to you, and it's entirely based on religion, skin color, or gender, no, I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to pretend that that's okay. I'm children who are autistic that even though they are more than twice as likely to get killed by a police officer than a black kid every year, I'm not going to tell them that they can just ignore black kids because black kids are a lot less likely to get killed than them. Same as I'm not going to tell a white person who is homeless any sort of that crap. We're all people. I'm also not going to go along with a narrative that ignores the majority of the victims. For people to claim that it is this big of a race issue, but to ignore how big of a class issue it is. So much greater a class issue. Consider this. 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by the police every year as a homeless person. 1 in 1,000. So yeah, there's a reason there's a lot of us homeless people out here who fight for black rights. We keep getting told that we can have people fight for our rights when we get black people theirs. Well, no, that's not equality. The 13th Amendment made all of us fucking slaves. It made anybody that society doesn't care about and doesn't care about the rights of automatically guilty. Those who are easiest to victimize. Who are the most likely white people to be victimized? The homeless and the disabled. Who are the most likely black people to be victimized? The homeless and the disabled. By a lot. Please stop excluding the other victims. You're kicking yourselves in the ass. And how the fuck do you think we feel when we keep getting told that we got to go to the back of the bus? Eventually someone will care. Eventually someone will care. No, you don't fucking care. People who are far less marginalized than us mean a far hell of a lot more to you than we do. We didn't ask to be born poor any more than a black person asked to be born black. When you tell us if we work hard enough and that it's so much different than being black, you know what? You're right, it is. But also, we are well aware that there are black people who do bleach their skin. How crazy is that? People who try to make themselves look whiter. Imagine if I ran around telling every black person who wants to try to make it about them, about they're being treated horrible because they're black. Imagine if I told them, hey, You know what? You can always bleach your skin. There's plenty of black people who do that. You can try to fit in. You can try to fit in. You see how wrong that is? You see how wrong that would be to do to a black person? Now, why the hell do you do that to disabled people? Pretend like they can get rid of their disabilities. Pretend like if a black person pretends that he's not black, then magically he won't be black. Magically, people won't beat him up for being black in one of these racist neighborhoods. Meanwhile, there is so much hatred for people who are homeless. You get done being a road raging fucking asshole, you're gonna find a homeless person if you ain't got the balls to shoot the person that you intended on shooting or running off the road. You know why most crimes against the homeless go unreported? Because we're fucking victimized as shit when we try to report things. Here's the moral of the story. Dreamers dream and builders build. But it takes an artist to bridge the gap. Lucky me, I'm all three. And Mel Brooks was definitely that for the Hollywood community. He was there for a lot of us to help give us a moral compass. To help us to understand that it's not just anti-Semitism. That hatred against one is hatred against all. Now, there are things that are unforgivable, in my opinion. There are things that you do not do to children. There's got to be something that can be done. Whining on Facebook isn't doing anything about it. Telling somebody who's being abused, oh, I'm sorry, that sounds like it must have been horrible. I'm sorry that sucked. That's not help. Sharing stories about famous people like Jason Momoa, the Kardashians, Johnny Depp, Will Smith. This is what we care about, right? We care about the rich and famous. We've taught a lot of people to live in fantasy worlds. To want to expect things to be given to them. I never wanted help. I wanted to be able to do it myself. I wanted to live the American dream. I wanted to believe we're all equal. But we're not. We are truly not. You get to see back during World War II how people fought against Nazi oppression. You get to see during the Civil War how people fought for the rights and freedom of people who were not them. We're not a part of their chosen group. Well, except that they were. Those slaves were human beings. Those black slaves were human beings. And those white people in the North thought so as well, and thought it was worth dying to free them. I've been to prison to protect your children. They had to let me out and drop the charges. It was hell in there. And I would still go back to prison to protect your children. It's not funny, is it? I want to thank Mel Brooks for everything that he did for all of us. I want to thank Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for everything that he did for all of us. Their messages are both equally important. I also want to thank a man who was born in my own home state, born in the same exact state as me, a man who went by the name Malcolm X. He did what tyrants understand, just like the Black Panthers. He spoke up about the Second Amendment and the need for the Second Amendment and the power of the Second Amendment and why the Second Amendment is so important, because it protects the First Amendment, and that includes your life. That includes all of your lives. Your lives are protected under the First Amendment. Your right to speak out is protected under the First Amendment. And if anybody wants to shut you up, they are a tyrant, and you have the Second Amendment as your right. Those of us who are voiceless aren't allowed the Second Amendment. So we have to hope that the people who are allowed the Second Amendment will fight for those of us who have been denied that right. But you won't. Turns out half of y'all are racist white rednecks who are stocking up on ammo for when the blacks and the Jews try to take over, which is just completely ludicrous. You're all stocked up on ammo because you're paranoid. And then we got a bunch of black folks all stocked up on guns and ammo. And why are they stocked up on guns and ammo? Because they're fucking afraid that white people are going to come in a bunch of fucking robes and wipe them all out, especially in times like this where we're having, of course, recessions and possible depressions on our financial situations. Yeah, people look for somebody to blame that they can actually take it out on. People they can actually harm. Yes, you want to scream for blood from the police that are killing your brothers and sisters. You want to scream for the blood of those officers who killed your black brothers and sisters. And you want to scream at whites for not doing enough. Meanwhile, what about all my brothers and sisters? Not just the black ones, not just the white ones, not just the native ones. What about them? What about the other victims of police brutality and bad laws? And the fact that even the majority of your numbers, BLM, the majority of the numbers that you use reflect a trend toward harming homeless people, not toward harming black people. It used to be that a black man was beaten up and he could scream until he was blue in the face. Nobody gave two shits that he was beaten up. Nobody cared that the cops beat the living fuck out of him. But then when people got violent, and there was riots and people got killed because cops were crooked, we started making laws, but the cops are still as equally as crooked as they were before. And we all know that somebody as predatory is going to find any excuse. If you tell him that he's going to get a whole lot more time if he beats on a black person now because of the political climate, thanks to people like Mel Brooks, and thanks to people like Malcolm X, who did the things, the gangsta-ass shit that tyrants understand. The Black Panther Party did the gangsta-ass shit that tyrants understand. You mob up on me, I mob up on you. You shoot my peeps, I shoot your peeps. That's the mentality. No, that's not me threatening anybody. That's actually me quoting some rap songs from the 90s. But that don't matter. See, I didn't listen to rap in the 90s. I didn't like most rap. The first rap song I liked, other than Amish Paradise, was I Ain't Mad at You by Tupac. And that wasn't a matter of racism. It was a matter of, all right, well, we got two types of rap in the 90s. We got gangster rap, which is basically less about the music and more about having beef with each other because the drama brings attention. And the attention brings you fans. And them fans make you money and bring you prestige. Look, mama, I got up and out the projects. Yep. And a lot of them folks, they bought their mamas a house as soon as they got up and out like they said they would. But they all know that it's few and far between, and becoming that rich man still requires taking a stomping from the people in power. If you want your music out there and you want to make them big dollars, you gotta, unfortunately, kiss some ass. I'm not here to argue the rap game. I'm not here to argue whether you think Malcolm X or Martin Luther King were more effective. I'm not here for that because here's the thing. Malcolm X was more effective. There is zero argument on that. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was more advertised and still is because his message was peaceful. Do you think these tyrants want to let you know what their kryptonite is? That they bowed down to just a few black people with guns walking into the California Senate. Just a few black men with guns was enough to make them that afraid to this day. And yes, those black men became martyrs to the cause. But they showed loud and proud. If this is what it takes, if they got to act like Ariel Sharon in the 101, if you're going to push it that far, then by God, have it be done. Anyway, I like Mel Brooks' way of doing it better. I also realized that until there was a very real threat of death for these politicians who don't know the first goddamn thing about living in the bottom, eating out of dumpsters, and freezing to death, or having your friends freeze to death just 20 feet from you. Jesus fuck. Yeah, they're not going to see us as human beings ever. But under penalty of death, because of the Second Amendment, yeah, if they fuck with you enough, you're allowed to use the Second Amendment. For me, I won't become a martyr if I do that. Do you know why? They'll just call me mentally ill and use it as an excuse to harm other people who are deemed mentally ill. So killing people is not in the plan. Shooting people is not in the plan. Y'all don't like that I speak up. It's kind of like back during the 90s. You had a lot of rappers who sang about things that happened to them, right? They also sing about emotional states. Some of them even sang songs that were written by other people because it was a powerful song. It hit them hard, and they told that person, hey, yeah, I'll sing your song, I'll represent it. Rappers going to prison because their song was talking about murdering somebody. And we get to hear, oh, well, they were talking about specifically this murder that he had committed in Oakland in 1993. And then, of course, years later, you find out that that person didn't actually kill anybody. That they found the person who actually did it. Or that they couldn't have been there because they were at a concert in Chicago that night and thousands of people saw it. One of them rappers, he wasn't even a big name rapper, but at least he was on the news. Just one of them small little mentions because, really people hated rappers back then. A lot of people did. I mean, that was a big target for the KKK. And I remember in the 80s, you've only got a few channels on the TV. I remember in the 80s seeing, very nicely dressed, prim and proper white people who were representatives for the KKK. These people all looked like they went to any church, or at any white person church, but black people who go to church, many of them dress up. Many white people dress up. Many natives dress up for church, for their religious services. You think KKK and you got this image of some guy in a white robe, or you got an image of a guy who goes to Civil War reenactments dressed in the South, thinking to himself the whole time he's reenacting, man, I wish you could go back in time. I'd change the whole war. The South would win. Like, oh my God, fucking nut jobs. And the fact is, a lot of those nut jobs actually do exist. Nut jobs like that actually are in the KKK. That's why in the 1980s they gave us guys like that for a more presentable public approach. When they were trying to pull this bullshit that they were trying to fight for equal rights for white people. No, not with that whole international Jewish communist conspiracy crap. Like, that's stupid. We even had that brought up in Blues Brothers. That's another movie that y'all might want to look at. Blues Brothers 2000. When we got one of them comedians from Saturday Night Live talking about the international Jewish communist conspiracy. The funny thing is that that's what we get thrown down our throats our whole lives. I get told that I look Jewish, I look Jewish, I look Jewish. I have people who want to pretend like I'm gay. Any excuse that people will make to harm you, they'll make. If they think it'll help them to get away with it. You just got to say it to the right crowd. It's kind of like, that movie American History X? I'm sure you've seen it. That girl from the movie The Craft. The one who plays the really, really super psycho one who goes like completely insane at the end of the movie. Well, that lady in American History X, she comes out after Edward Norton has gone to prison and he's had all that stuff happen to him, and he realized what a really screwed up situation it actually was. And he was out. She comes out and she starts calling him the N-word, screaming at the top of her lungs that he's the N-word. I've had that happen. It's actually recorded on my YouTube channel. That old guy calling me the N-word up there in Hood River. It's actually recorded on my channel. And now he wasn't doing it loud like that lady was doing. And he was doing it in it's a racist area. But it's nothing like being at an Aryan Brotherhood rally or a KKK rally and there's nobody there to protect you. You are the lone man out in that situation. That could easily turn into a situation where a couple of people walk off with you and you just never come back. Or you might get beaten to death then and there, but they generally try to do things smarter this day and age. There's always a weak link, and the more people you got there, the more witnesses there are, and the more likely that somebody's going to break. More likely that somebody who holds some actual care for other human beings of a different color, instead of just looking at them as a horrible demon or a bad dog that was born without fur or something creepy like that. Like, no, these are people. So sometimes they'll wait a few days and then the person just mysteriously disappears. Yep, down to the Louisiana swamp, up into the mountains, Mount Hood, or into the Columbia River. You never know. Or drop them off halfway between Hardin and Lame Deer. God, it's messed up. But thank goodness there's people like Mel Brooks, right? Thank goodness there's people like George Carlin to bring it to us the right way. Here's what made George Carlin so great. The same exact thing that made that one line, "Hey, where the white women at?" so powerful. Because it's fucking insulting. It is insulting as all fuck. He is being a condescending fucking asshole to you goddamn dipshits. And he ain't nice about it either. And you laugh, and you laugh, and you laugh, and you laugh, and it's hilarious. And the fucked up part is, you're laughing because it's true. Good to be rid of you. Thanks for coming to visit. Stay out of trouble or don't get caught. Remember, you are your brother's keeper, and no victim left behind. Oh, and please, stop killing people. You don't have to kill people. The Second Amendment, you know what? These people are cowards. They have your sons and daughters fight their wars for a reason. They have your sons and daughters fight because they're too afraid to do it themselves. They're too afraid to take the bullets. I'm not afraid to take the bullets. I just wish they'd get it over with. I'm afraid that I won't get to see my loved ones. I won't get to go visit them. I won't get to... Well, I no longer have a support network. I haven't had a support network since Natalie died. There's been a few times that I thought I did, but you know what? In the end, if they don't speak up in court where it matters, to the public where it matters, then I continue to be harmed over a false narrative. I need to be allowed to show this evidence, instead of people blowing me off until it all goes away. Stop fucking killing people. And stop making excuses. Any excuse is good enough when someone comes to you for help. Isn't it? Any excuse is good enough to look the other way. Unfortunately, something that could be remedied with somebody taking 10 minutes of action can easily turn into 6 years of abuse, several bodies, and of course dozens of arrests of people that I tried telling you were abusing me. Well, guess what? You let them get away, and they did it to others. Stop the killing. I know that you guys got songs that you listen to that talk about killing. And I want you to understand that that's been going on for a long time. when they were trying to arrest black folks for singing about shooting people in the 90s. They actually did. Some of them were charged with murder for singing about killing people. But then you listen to a lot of country songs and you realize that those country singers ain't out there actually doing that stuff. It's just a country song. They're expressing some emotion and telling a story. Well, you say it to a country tune and rap, it's, well, a little more poetic to a beat. See, we had two kinds of rap back in the 90s, like I said. We had the fun rap, which was basically nursery rhymes. It's all rhymey-dimey, and that's what it was about. And then we had rap like what Tupac did, which was a statement of form, but it was poetic. And although it was somewhat that, well, no, it wasn't that rhymey-dimey crap. But we had the rhymey-dimey kind of happy-go-lucky stuff, and we had the gangster rap. And most of the gangster rap was rhymey-dimey crap, too. A bunch of derogatory stuff, downing on women. And you know, a lot of folks wanted to say we needed to get rid of rap because of that. Well, if we were to get rid of rap because of that, we would have to get rid of the Bible for the same reason. If you want to abolish rap for that reason, then you need to abolish the Bible. You also need to abolish rock and roll. Matter of fact, in that particular case, you have to get rid of probably just about every single history book that has ever been written. And just about every fictional story that was ever written. It's called censorship, and it's horrible. Stop fucking killing people.